Let's begin first. Let's have to take a minute to introduce yourself and just a little bit about yourself.
Am I first?
You're closest to me.
The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Okay, stand here. Well, my name is Vernon Parker, and just to give you a little background about myself, I was raised by my grandmother in an area that was replete with drugs, gangs, and violence, and she taught me one thing which was very important, and that was the American dream. And that is that you can be whatever you want as long as you work as hard as you want. And when I graduated from Georgetown University's law school, that was her American dream. And I served as a special assistant to President George H.W. Bush in the White House. That was the American dream. When I was unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate as an assistant secretary, that was the American dream to her. When I served as a mayor of Paradise Valley, that was the American dream, because it was the American dream for one reason, because it was something that she did not have. And I have an 18-year-old son right now who's graduating from high school, he's going to college, and this is not the same country. We have a president who has bankrupted this country. We have a president who has saddled future generations, and we have a bill that is going on. And I tell you one thing, you will hear from me in the future.
When you hear the one thing of the bell, you have about 10 seconds left.
Okay.
Oh, I had 10 seconds.
I had 10 seconds left, you didn't tell me that. Thank you guys for being here, appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Leah Campo-Shandelbauer, and I'm another one of these candidates here. I actually was raised many years in Mesa, and so I'm really happy to be here tonight. I have a lot of great supporters from here, including Dave Udall and Ross Farnsworth. I'm so excited to have them supporting me. I just will say briefly, since we only have a short amount of time, I recently resigned from a career at the CIA. I served abroad as an operations officer with the Central Intelligence Agency for over a decade, and now I'm back here at home and have decided that our country needs a change in direction right here, because we're losing the aspirational nature of our country, and as Vernon said, our president is taking us down the wrong path, and I would like to be part of the change and the solution in Washington, and that's why I'm here, and I hope to earn your vote in this campaign. Thank you.
I'm Travis Grantham. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a third-generation Arizonan. I'm a husband and a father, a business owner in the district, and a National Guard pilot. I fly KC-135 in the Phoenix Air Guard. I'm a captain. I've been in the Guard here for 13 years. Vernon said something important. The American dream, it's being lost. It's being taken away. His grandmother's American dream, my American dream. A lot of you in this audience, our jobs, our businesses, we're losing them. We're losing them to an overbearing federal government. We have a stagnant economy. We have record debt in this country, $16 trillion in debt. A number that is more dangerous than any enemy in this world, foreign or domestic for that matter. We have a federal government who has its hands in everything, every aspect of our lives. Our businesses, our homes, and our private lives. We need to elect individuals who know this is a representative republic and who will go to Washington to stop this intrusion. Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight. I'm Jeff Thompson. Not a politician, I'm a retired businessman. I've lived in the district for 31 years. Been married 36 years. My wife Jeannie's back here. She joined me here tonight. We've got 3 adult children. Like I said, I didn't come out of the political world, never ran for political office, and this is my first time. I think that it's a very critical election. I look back, I get people 5 or 6 times a day say, "What are you doing? You're retired, why are you getting into politics?" And I look to a quote from Thomas Jefferson. He said, "Tyranny gets a foothold when people of good conscience remain silent." And that pretty much sums up why I got in this race. I don't want to send another politician back to Washington, D.C. I've got a lot of expertise in the economy, business, and healthcare. I think that'll come out tonight. Thanks for coming. Look forward to visiting with you tonight.
I'm Wendy Rogers. I'm a precinct committee woman in this district. I was here last month. My husband Hal Cunnan is also in the audience and a precinct committeeman. We own a business. We own a home inspection business in this district. We have 14 employees that we made a payroll for. And we have a tough time because of government intrusion, intervention, and getting in the way. I'm a leader. I'm a trailblazer. I get it done. I'm a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, one of the first women pilots in the Air Force. What a privilege that was. And it'll be a privilege to serve you because service is in my DNA. I'm a 5th generation military officer. I'm a mother of 2 adult children and a grandchild. And I promised my dad in February before he passed that I would get this country back. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you for having us tonight. I'm Martin Sepulveda. I'm running for Congress in this district because it's my home. I live in this district, I was raised here. My family's been part of this community since the 1870s when they homesteaded University and Mill in Tempe. I'm an Arizona State graduate. I met my wife there. We raised our family in Chandler. I started my company there, and I was elected twice to city council. I'm a military guy. Most of my time's in the reserves. I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 17. I'm now 52. I'm a commander in the Navy Reserves. I'm assigned to SEAL Team 17 in Coronado. I'm a combat vet, and I know how precious our liberty is. I'm a small business owner. I've got over almost 25 years of public and private sector business development experience, so I understand how the economy works. The 2 terms I served in the Chandler City Council, non-consecutive terms. I tell you that because I'm not one of these guys who always has to be in office. I'm not a career politician. If there's important things we need to discuss tonight, I think experience matters, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
All right, now let's move on to the next group of questions. A little bit tougher, but a lot shorter. You've got the yes, you've got the yes and no cards in front of you. So I'm going to start shooting off some questions at you, and your job is to hold up the appropriate sign, a green for yes, red for no. Very basic. Each of you will be answering these questions simultaneously. You may have mixed feelings about some of these issues, but we ask that you either answer with an either yes or no anyway, since that's what you're going to be doing when you're elected. So, let's begin with number 1. Do you support any modification to the Second Amendment? Number 2, would you agree to support the original intent of the 14th Amendment? All right. Would you support the repeal of the 17th Amendment? Number 4, would you support an amendment to the Constitution creating term limits for officers of the legislative branch of the federal government? All right. Number 5, would you support an amendment to the Constitution creating term limits for the justices of the Supreme Court? Would you support an amendment to elect instead of appoint Supreme Court justices? All right. Number 7, would you like to see the Constitution state that U.S. senators are elected by state legislators? All right. Number 8, would you support an amendment requiring the election of Supreme Court justices by U.S. senators instead of appointment by the President of the United States? I will. Would you support an amendment requiring the election of Supreme Court justices by U.S. senators rather than by appointment by the President of the United States? All right. I think we're done with the Constitution. Is he just banning your sign right off? That's one way to get rid of the competition. Nobody will know who she is. Okay, let's go to domestic affairs. Number 9, do you support developing our natural resources? Nice. Number 10, do you support keeping the Environmental Protection Agency? Do you support keeping the Department of Education? I'm assuming Department of Education be federal.
I changed my last answer.
I will repeat. Do you support keeping the Department of Education?
Now, I will plead ignorance on the last question, because when you said the EPA, we're putting it at the state level, so I said keep the EPA, I said yes,
But you would say no
but
for
question,
the federal EPA.
federal would be
Federal
no.
office.
It's a federal
Federal
office.
would be no.
Okay.
State would be yes on EPA.
So those keeping score on that, you might want to go back one question and give Kennedy Thompson a no.
You know,
Question.
clarification, I mean, the federal office right now, but we would support pushing them down to the state level.
The question is all about federal.
Right.
Everything
We're
is-
just covering federal right now.
Appreciate that.
Which one? EPA and the Department of Education. Okay, number 10, let's do it one more time. Do you support keeping the federal Environmental Protection Agency? All right. And number 11, do you support keeping the Department of Education? Federal. Is that you that keeps standing there? Okay, I see that. Just wonder why everybody on either side of you is losing their name. Okay. Number 12, do you support the death penalty?
That's not federal, that's state by state.
There's federal on that too.
Still supported.
Good. I'm merely a moderator. All right, let's take it to the family. Number 13, do you support the federal government making legislation against same-sex marriage?
Keep holding them up.
Keep them up. Not everybody's done yet.
Include DAMA,
Excuse me?
Defense of Marriage Act? No,
Uh,
that's, okay. You're talking against.
They're saying the federal government.
Federal government making
So
it
this would
against.
be the repeal of DAMA, you're saying?
No. This is specifically against. It's not going.
Okay, one more time. Do you support the federal government making legislation against same-sex marriage?
Marriage is a state issue.
Power law discussion. Yes or no?
State's power.
Right, so we're talking about it's the state commission power. Now we're talking about taking I'm sorry, the attempt. Now we're talking about taking that power away from the state.
So the question remains, do you support the federal government making legislation? Whether it's on the state level or not, do you support the federal government taking a stand in that? Okay. Number 14, do you support the choice for abortion on demand? Number 15, do you believe partial birth abortion should remain illegal? Let's go into labor. Number 16. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just reading the question. You like that transition? I want to talk to the writers. Do you support hiring quotas based on an individual's race, color, national origin, religion, sex, age, disability, or genetic information? Number 17, do you support legislation making sex preference a protected minority? All right. Number 18, do you support adding protections against discrimination and harassment based on sexual orientation, parental status, marital status, and political affiliation? All right. Number 19. Healthcare. Do you support the new federal rule that requires employers, churches are exempt, who have health care plans to provide contraception and birth control services? Do you believe that the religious exemption should be broadened to include a host of institutions operated by churches, namely charities, service agencies, hospitals, and schools, even if many employees of these institutions are not members of the employing church? That was a bonus question. All right, let's get out of that. Let's just go to finances. Number 21, do you support auditing the Federal Reserve System? Number 22, do you support raising the debt ceiling? One of those red ones. Number 23, do you support eliminating the Federal Reserve System? That was very weak.
You can't give a good answer to that until you know first what happens from the prior question.
Sure. Okay. That's the reason for the slow cards on that. Number 24, do you support federal subsidies to private industries? All right. Number 25, do you support allowing individuals to opt out of Social Security? Number 26, do you support import taxes? All right. I love when the murmuring starts. Okay. Number 27, do you support the restoration of precious metals-based currency in the United States and allow the exchange of precious metals held by Americans in daily commerce? And number 28, do you support a national flat tax? Yeah. Now let's go to the Department of Defense. Do you support the USA Patriot Act of 2001? Do you support the National Defense Authorization Act?
Okay, now there's a lot in the authorization. Specifically in there? Yes or no?
Yeah, these are all.
All in the military, that's all I'm saying.
Okay. Okay, they say there's another question coming up on that, so we'll get to that. Immigration. Do you support amnesty? Number 32, do you support sealing the border? Number 33, do you support using taxpayer dollars on entitlement programs for illegal aliens? I think there's some fluff questions in here. Some softball pitches. Okay, foreign relations. Number 34, do you support the U.S. intervening with Iran developing nuclear armaments? All right. 35, do you support standing with our ally Israel? Number 36, do you support the North American Union, which combines North and South America? Do you support U.S. troops being under UN command? Number 38, would you demand that Congress declare war before committing U.S. military intervention? Would you support the President committing U.S. military intervention for more than 30 days without Congress declaring war? And number 40, do you support defunding the United Nations? All right, enough of waving cards at us. You guys made it. Now, let's move on to some 30-second questions. We will tell you we'll give you 30 seconds for these first few questions, then we'll give you 1-minute questions. We ask you to stand when you speak so that everyone can hear and see you. You will hear a bell ding once when you have 10 seconds remaining for your answer. The bell will ding incessantly, underline that, once your time has expired. You do not need to use the full amount of time to answer the question if it's not needed. We encourage you to keep your responses to the point so that we can ask additional questions so that our constituents can get a better understanding of why we should vote for you. If you do not answer the question asked, I will issue a warning. Tough. If you repeatedly avoid questions, then you may be skipped for future questions. If needed, I can repeat any questions. So, I guess let's begin with candidate Campbell Shandelbauer. Am I saying that right? I'll butcher every name up there. As a congresswoman, where in the Constitution do you get your authority from? And when is the last time you took a serious study of the Constitution?
Article 1, Section 8. Right before we came here in the office, we were talking about it, and you know, I served at the CIA, and so when you pledge an oath to the Constitution, you understand the spirit of it.
Same question. She answered it. Article 1, Section 8.
And when was the last time you took it?
Shane Krauser was about 3 months ago. Thanks. Best constitutional mind, in my opinion, in the Valley, maybe in the country.
Yeah, Article 1, Section 8 gives the power to the government and given to them by the people. I just read that book, actually. Someone I was fortunate gave that book to me, and I've read it about 3 or 4 times. If you've not read that book, I would recommend it.
Article 1, Section 8, my husband and I also took Shane Krauser's course a few months ago, and I have the Hillsdale book that I'm studying as well. I too took the oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I spent nearly half my 20-year career overseas doing that, to include a 6-month deployment. And until you leave this country, and you go to other countries, and you leave your children behind, can you truly realize the efficacy of our Constitution?
It's Article 1, Section 8, and Shane Krauser is a rock star. We try and make one of his classes at least once a month. The grueling campaign schedule doesn't allow us to be there once a week. But he does have a very good series. If you folks haven't followed Shane, he's an excellent teacher. And I would say probably one of the premier experts in the Constitution in the nation. I think he's going to be in Dallas with Glenn Beck another week or so, maybe a few weeks, so that's something to watch out for.
Eric, remind them to stand when they speak.
I just passed it to us, I'm standing. Article 1, Section 8, and I'll tell you guys, I went through a confirmation hearing with the United States Congress where I was unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate, and that is indeed a process. And I went to law school at Georgetown University's law school where they didn't teach us constitutional law, they taught us theory. So I had to learn it as I practiced with both Bush administrations.
All right, let's move this one now. We'll start with Congressman Grantham or candidate Grantham. He's already there. Perfect. Sorry. Everybody go home with Sorry. Take them. Here we go. Let's do this one. What is the most flagrant violation to the Constitution that Congress is responsible for today?
Oh man, I gotta go first on that one. Article 1, Section 8 lays out our powers as congressmen, if we make it. I think the most recent, apparent, flagrant violation, in that article, and in that section, it says we will establish a uniform law of naturalization. Look at what this president just did with an executive order granting blanket amnesty to people who are in this country illegally.
There's numerous violations. I would say, instead of pinpointing one, it's just the gross negligence of power by our federal government. It's too big, it's way more powerful. We grant the government its powers, and it's just gone overboard. It seems like whenever the Constitution gets in the way, they just circumvent it. And the Constitution's not the problem, it is the solution.
The biggest violation that I see is the appointment of czars. Czars are not to be effecting law and putting regulations into place because they are not elected. They are merely an extension of the president. But what has happened is that they have been given more power than what they are supposed to be endowed with.
Yeah, I think the biggest violation in my mind is not upholding the War Powers Act. We've been at war more or less since 1999 to now. Kosovo, the Middle East, Central Asia, and no one in Congress has upheld the War Powers Act. Have a very public discussion about what we're doing, what the mission is, what the answer is. They haven't done that. They've been very lax. With respect to the National Defense Authorization Act, big act, there's a lot in that that does not belong when you authorize military funding.
I think the biggest has been the erosion of the 10th Amendment, taking powers from the states and giving it to the federal government. And I also think another huge chunk has to be the Supreme Court ruling of the taxing authority, expanding that. And I think that we must do all we can to bring that back to civilization and to say that we will take back the 10th Amendment and we will make sure that the taxing authority and the Commerce Clause are well under wraps.
I'm going to echo what Martin said. I think that Congress has systematically ceded its responsibility to declare war to the executive, and I think that that's a very flagrant violation of their constitutional responsibilities.
All right, now, that's a two-part question. Oh, no, this one's not. Number 43. Do you know what Agenda 21 is, and how do you feel about it? We'll start with candidate Thompson. Candidate still.
Well, for those of you that are not familiar with it, this is through the United Nations. Did anyone know here how much funding our country gives the United Nations? What percent? It's 50%. 50% funding. And I think the United Nations and what they're doing right now with circumventing the Second Amendment and all the power that they have that really are not in the best interest of our people makes me think we have to give strong consideration to pulling out altogether.
I absolutely do know what Agenda 21 is because I'm a property owner. Because I own an office building on Rural Road. And because I will have to subscribe to energy standards and the word sustainability, which is really a euphemism for government control. I am very scared about how much municipalities like Tempe are already subscribing to Agenda 21.
Agenda 21 came out of the Rio Compact some time ago, UN-sponsored conference, and basically want to get everyone on the same sheet of music for sustainability, urban land use, and pretty much create a unified set of, I guess, edicts, what it could boil down to, so that everyone complies with, in someone's opinion, is the highest and best use of urban land, natural resources, energy, you name it. But it does take power away from the United States, arguably, states, cities, towns, taxpayers.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, once again, this is the United States giving their authority up to foreign interests, and I believe that we must stand strong. We must have the authority to say that we will not be controlled by anyone except for this country and bring it right back to the Constitution.
Yeah, Agenda 21 is just another example of the United States being asked by this global community to cede its sovereignty, and this is why the United Nations, this is the agenda of the United Nations and of other international organizations, and we need to stand our ground on those and maintain our sovereignty on these issues.
If you go home tonight, look on my website. I wrote about treaties that were being discussed in Chicago at the NATO and G8 summits. Agenda 21, I'm going to be naive here. It's voluntary. It's non-binding, even funnier. And yes, it's an agreement that they want us to enter into that has everything to do with sustainable development. I do not agree with it.
All right, thank you. Two-part question now. Number one, how many UN multilateral treaties do you favor? And name them. Agree on this. We'll get all with one. I'll start with Wendy. Oh, thank you.
How many UN treaties do I favor? What I'm going to do is tell you what part of the United Nations that I favor. When I was deployed to run the Bosnian airlift in 1994 with the Joint Task Force Provide Promise, we worked closely with UNHCR. That is the United Nations High Committee for Refugees. That's what the UN is good for, but not combat.
I favor none. I have served in a combat role in Kosovo under the UN command, and they were so pathetic that they got knocked out. We created our own command with the allies, okay? And so I've seen them firsthand, and they fail. They fail. One thing quickly, there's a bad thing happened in Kosovo called Srebrenica. Now they're trying to compare what's happening in Syria to Srebrenica. Again, under the UN auspices, UN auspices, not the United States, I don't favor anything to do with them, especially when it comes to combat operations.
Very easy question, 0. And I don't know why, for the love of God, we fund the UN so that they can just say horrible things about us. Let's move them to Switzerland. Switzerland is a neutral country. So let's neutrally pick them up and move them to Switzerland. Take back New York. Okay? I love New York.
I think Wendy is onto something. There are some elements of the UN that are noble and honorable, like the human trafficking portion of it. I think that's a very important international issue that should be addressed. But anything else, combat operations that usurp U.S. sovereignty, it's not good for our national interest. We need to be going at it unilaterally.
The one UN treaty I would support would be the one that abolished the UN and closed the doors. What Leah and Wendy are saying is kind of correct, but that's why we have a USAID. That's why we have foreign disaster relief. Foreign relief should be about going and helping a country that has had a devastating natural disaster, not putting $300 million in their bank account. So end the UN, get us out of the UN entirely.
The UN is kind of like our federal government. They've just gotten a little bit too big and too powerful. You may have seen it here recently. They appointed Iran for the Committee on Gun Control. Did you ever see that? Good appointment. Yeah, I can say that the UN originally, it was intended to go into very poor countries and help with their development with poor people. It's gotten away from that. If they want to get back to that, I think that's great, and I think we probably have enough like-minded people in this country that would be in favor of putting money in and helping those countries, but certainly not what they're doing. I'm hard of hearing. Has that bell ring yet?
And let's go with the same question. How many UN treaties do you oppose? Multilateral treaties do you oppose, and name them?
I thought I answered that.
You said favor. You didn't favor. What do you favor? Everybody said no.
I don't want to have
You
anything to
assume
do.
it-
I want to have nothing to do with the UN.
Oh, okay, so let's oppose everything that they do then. Is that everybody's, is that everybody's?
No, we gotta get specific on it. I'd love to talk about it because it matters. Okay, let's rotate it.
Let's rotate it. If you don't have an answer, you say you want nothing to do with the UN,
No,
we'll just pass it on and we'll go on to the next candidate.
Other than Wendy, I'm probably the only person up there that's been in a combat environment with the UN. They're pathetic. You know, the whole peacekeeping mission, even the foreign aid mission, there's graft, there's corruption. They can't account for their own books. So if they can't do simple things, I'm not inclined to trust them to do more complex things. So there's nothing about the UN that I see as redeeming that I would support.
That's a new question. Which do you oppose? We said, which do you favor? Most people
Oh,
said
it's a
no.
brand new question? So I know.
Which do you
I oppose everything.
There you go. Ask them.
I'm very serious about it.
Yes, the concept of world government goes against everything that we believe in as Americans, so there's really very little, if anything, redeemable there, so I agree with Martin on this one.
In real quick defense, I've got a tremendous amount of respect for everybody sitting up at this table. Martin has been there, Wendy has been there. I was in Iraq and Afghanistan this last November, working with people directly associated with the UN. It's a mistake for them to be involved. I'll go through them real quick. What do we oppose? Law of the Sea Treaty. I oppose that. Outer Space Code of Conduct Treaty. Google it. I oppose that. The Criminal Court Treaty. I wrote about this. Go on my website. I oppose that. These are treaties that matter.
So you oppose all of them? You oppose all of them?
Those specifically,
Okay. Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. To tell you that I know every one of those treaties and which one should be supported and which one should be opposed would make a mockery of this. I do not. I come from the business world and I've not studied that. I'll say this and I'll just stick to what I've been saying. The United Nations we give 50% funding to. I don't like what they're doing. I don't think you like what they're doing. I think we have to take a hard look at everything they do, and certainly having them involved in treaties is something that's highly questionable.
I mentioned the UNHCR. There's also the ICAO, which ICAO, International Civil Aviation Authority. Those are UN offshoots. Those are good things. But combat, there is no place in combat for the United Nations. And the little blue berets, I can't abide by it.
Let me bring out my eyes. All right, let's move on to the next one. Are you aware of the Council on Foreign Relations and do you support it?
I'm sorry, yes, then the answer is no.
Yes, I'm familiar with the Council on Foreign Relations. Do you mean, do I support it? In what way am I involved with it? I mean, I think it's their existence is fine. They can you know, wax on as much as they please, but I disagree with many of the things that they come out with as an organization.
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
It's an organization that has all stripes of political thinking and thinkers. It has eminent jurists in it and all kinds of people who are at the top of their field. They publish articles, they give talks. It is not an organization per se that I would approve of or disapprove of. Some stands or issue papers that they have published I might not approve of, but as a total organization, there is no generalizing about it.
Yes, I'm familiar with the Council on Foreign Affairs. I think it's good to listen to all sides of an argument. Very distinguished people, agree or disagree. Maybe it's like Sun Tzu, know your enemy. A lot of different opinions out there, but they're not binding. A lot of people will take a legislative opinion based on what they heard at the Council on Foreign Affairs. That's fine, but I think it's always important to have a discussion, whether you agree or disagree, or have a forum for those discussions.
All right, last 30-second question, we'll move on to the 1 minute so you have more time to talk. If you could change only one of these, which one would it be and what would you change? The current healthcare system, the Department of Education, the USA Patriot Act, or National Defense Authorization Act? We'll start.
You're talking about the Affordable Health Care Act.
I will say the current healthcare system, is that the Affordable Health Care Act? Is that what you want?
Yeah, that would be it.
Okay, there you go. So healthcare system, Department of Education, USA Patriot Act, or National Defense Authorization Act?
Because I'm confident that everybody here is going to vote to repeal Obamacare, I'm going to say Department of Education, because I think that the greatest threat that we face on a long-term basis is that our K through 12 education, and we heard this, Wendy and I in Washington, is failing our kids and we're falling behind, and we really need to improve our education system so we can be, once again, the leaders in every technological advance.
I'm going to go with the Affordable Health Care Act, which is now our healthcare system, because it is going to bankrupt our country, it is going to balloon our debt, and it is going to ultimately bring us down.
Without question, the Affordable Health Care Act, it will bankrupt our country, I promise you that. Healthcare needs fixed, there's no question. That's why this was a magnet for people. I do know a lot about healthcare. We do have to have tort reform, we have to have portability, and there are things that we can fix. I know probably more about healthcare than 99% of the people in Washington, D.C.
As a healthcare clinician, yes, I was a psychiatric social worker in the Air Force for 3 years in mental health. I can tell you that there are alternatives. Portability across state lines, banding together as small business owners to create pools of insurance, incentivizing good behavior. That is all doable. But Obama doesn't want to do it because he wants to take over your body.
A little bit naive. I think that the Affordable Health Care Act will fail. Okay, so I think I've got confidence that thing will fail and be thrown out in some fashion. It is a big threat. It's cost a lot of money, but guess what? So is the Patriot Act. Patriot Act, you lose your rights as an American. Some of the issues that were tucked inside the National Defense Authorization Act, same thing. We lose our rights. We lose our rights. So don't be naive. I think the Affordable Health Care Act will fail, but I think the bigger pressing issue is to have a Patriot Act that takes away your rights as an American now.
I would not fall into the trap of calling this the Affordable Health Care Act, because it is not affordable and it is not a health care act. Never before, this is the biggest tax increase in civilization, and never before in American history have we said that we will penalize small businesses if you hire more than 50 people and they work more than 39 hours per week, and you will have to pay the penalty. This is going to destroy America as we know it. We must repeal it.
All right, now we're going to move on to the 1-minute questions. So they'll have a little more time to get their answers out. Question number 1, we'll start with candidate Grantham. How many enumerated powers are given to Congress through the Constitution? Name as many as you can.
All right. I'm going to invoke Shane Krauser. Collect taxes. Pay our debt. One of the ones that I think is the most important. Provide for the common defense and the general welfare of the United States. Borrow money. Regulate commerce between foreign nations, states, and Indian tribes. Boy, I'm digging now. Coin money. Provide for the sciences and useful arts. I love that term, useful arts. There's about 4 clauses that deal with our militias in this country, and arming them and disciplining them and providing for them and sending them to war. And I'm sure I forgot a couple, but we need 10 minutes to discuss that.
Same question?
Same question.
I have to add to what he said. I'll tell you what, he dug deeper than I could have dug. As I went through, and the ones I knew, he nailed. So, I wish I could tell you I could add to that, but I can't.
Hey, I'm coming prepared.
Well, one of them that we didn't talk about is to defend against and punish piracy. Oh, you think, well, there's no piracy? What do you think cyber warfare is? We have an entire function in the United States Air Force now devoted to combating cyber warfare. So, there you go.
Yeah, I'm a Navy guy, I should have come up with a pirate question. But again, I think it goes back to treaties and certainly declare war. Congress has that authority to declare war, not the president, not any other branch. Post office, in our Constitution, they established a post office treaty. So I mean, we've got a big list here. I guess I wouldn't want to try and add to anything that's already been said.
Thank you, and I normally don't do this in any forum, but I want to congratulate Travis on being the first one up on that question. And everyone else, they've done an impeccable job of defining it, but I think that we really should be focusing on what Congress is not doing, and that is enforcing and upholding the 10th Amendment and giving powers back to the states. But I really congratulate my colleagues for their wonderful answers.
So I would add to the list one that's particularly relevant right now, the establishment of immigration and naturalization laws. I think that's very relevant, and it's been circumvented.
All right. Let's do this one as a two-part question. Of all the areas that Congress is responsible for, which would be your highest priority to change, and are you willing to sacrifice your political career to accomplish that reform?
Well, I think that without question, it's spending. Everyone says we have a tax problem in this country. We do not. Taxing treats the symptom to the problem. The problem is spending. I think since we've been up here, the national debt's grown by about $250 million. 4.1 billion a day. And I'm going to tell you something right now. We've got a major spending problem, and President Obama has done absolutely nothing. He borrows money, he prints money, or he taxes. Anyone know how much money he's printed since he's been in office? $2.5 trillion has been printed. That's why gold has tripled since he's been in office. And I'm going to tell you something. Yeah, I go back there, I'm going to draw the line in the sand, because if you vote for me, you should vote for me not because of what I know about the Constitution. You should do it because what I understand about the business world and healthcare, and those two areas are critical. And you can know the Constitution inside out, and I'm a big fan of it. We will go broke if we don't fix the economy by making the necessary cuts and making the proper legislation. So I'm getting dinged, so I'll stop there.
To borrow money on the credit of the United States. I'm a small business owner. I can't borrow money like that. I can't print money. I don't get a stimulus. I don't get a bailout. All my vehicles have over 200,000 miles on them. I have to go to Craigslist and pay cash. Why can't government do that? Why can't you send a business owner to Congress with a sharp pencil and make it so that government can't borrow? Because that's not helping our credit as a country, and it doesn't teach the next generation of entitlement orientation that that's okay to do, because it's not okay to do. We need to pay for it on our own or not buy it.
You know, before Secretary Gates left office, or his appointed office, he said the biggest threat to the United States of America is debt, our foreign debt, our deficit spending. Not any nation, not China, not Russia, not any emerging nation, but certainly our out-of-control deficit spending and a debt that's not sustainable. So now I use that Secretary of Defense Gates because, again, we've had over 10 years of undeclared wars. The cost is somewhere between 1.5 and almost $5 trillion. Okay, it kind of goes part and parcel with we're at war, the war on terror. Who knows what that is? I've been there. I know it's said to be by a bunch of different people, but I can't tell you what it is. It's morphed. And right now, I'll tell you this, we're spending more money and losing more lives than we need to on nationhood, not wars, not a combat operation. So again, the threat is debt, deficit spending, But part and parcel with what Secretary of Defense Gates said, you got to look at the wars. They're not declared, and it costs us too many lives and too much money.
Martin, a lot of exercise running back and forth here. Thank you. Good job, buddy. I really do believe that we have a serious problem in Washington, D.C. when we have unelected officials who are bureaucrats. They sit in a little cubicle and they pass regulations that affect small business, and they are not held accountable, and these regulations have the effect of law. Congress should review those. The other thing that I saw in working with the federal government as an assistant secretary, they have what you call use it or lose it. At the end of the fiscal year, if you don't spend all the money that you have been allowed it in your budget, guess what? You don't get it next year. And so you see the Blackberries, the iPhones, the new computers, the new carpet, and we should reward agencies for giving back to the budget as opposed to taking away from it.
Well, Congress has the power of the purse, and so I'll echo what some of the people said up here. We have an obligation, and Congress has an obligation to cut spending in a big way, rather than being beholden to campaign contributors and lobbyists to maintain programs that are either unconstitutional and generally useless to our interests.
You got to pay the debt. And they're doing their job borrowing money. I mean, that's the reality. They're not paying the debt. And that is the number one issue, and you've heard it up here from many of the candidates. What was the second part of it was a two-part question?
I'll get to that after that, since everybody else forgot it. We'll just go.
You want to ask that as a second one?
I'll ask it.
Okay, great.
Because everybody forgot it. We'll just pull up our little red and green cards again. It'll make it so much easier. Remember the question? There you go. Are you willing to sacrifice your political career to accomplish that reform? All right, next question. What is your solution for the illegal aliens that are already here? We'll start with Wendy on that.
You enforce the law. What a concept. When you enforce the law, a lot of things take care of themselves. I subscribe to E-Verify. I'm a business owner. As I said, I have 14 employees. And if you toe the line, enforce the standard, how many of us are parents? When someone says, well, so-and-so down the block, that family's doing it that way. My answer, we don't do that. We adhere to standards, and when we raised our kids, that's how we parented. They called people Mr. and Mrs. They didn't say like, and you know all the time. They did their homework. I didn't do it for them. We enforce standards. Our country needs to get back to enforcing standards. We've lost our moral compass, and it spills over into immigration.
You do enforce the laws. You can't pick and choose part of the immigration the immigrant population, the illegal immigrant population. Nothing that has amnesty tied to it is going to work. It's not a solution. It perhaps adds more to the problem. The DREAM Act, that's not a solution. This 16 to 30-year-old group of people that have been in the United States is not a solution. You enforce the laws, you don't reward bad behavior, and you have to force every member of Congress to have the guts to look at a comprehensive immigration reform.
We are a nation of laws. We cannot pick and choose which ones we would like to enforce. I don't like red lights. So what if I said, I'm not going to stop at a red light? I don't like stop lines. I don't like speed limits. There are so many things that we have to adhere to. But when we talk about immigration, it's not about color. It's about protecting our country. America is the only country where it's frowned upon to protect your borders. When we see drugs coming into this country, and I've seen the devastation of drugs on families, and we see human bondage and people, modern day slavery, thrown into coyotes, taking people and basically selling them. That is not America. But what we must do is secure our border to make sure that we protect this country just like any other country.
The first thing we do is we need to get Congress to actually start talking about this problem as a public policy question and to stop politicizing it. And I think that, there are two things that we can't do. We can't offer another amnesty because we tried that in 1986 and it just created another magnet. And we can't realistically round everybody up because it's too costly and it's not practical and it's impossible. So we need to come up with some sort of public policy solution that's going to deal with the problem. E-verify, enforcement methods, yes, absolutely, but we need to actually discuss what we're going to do about the people here, whether it's going to be some sort of temporary worker status that we offer them if they comply with certain legal qualifications, not having broken laws, etc. It's a complex issue and it involves human beings, and that's why it requires real, honest public policy solutions and not political rhetoric.
We are a nation of laws, and the last time I checked, entering into this country illegally was against the law. And it was said very well up here, enforce the laws. This isn't so much an immigration problem, by the way, as it is a border security problem in this country. If we had a secure border, north and south, we wouldn't have the illegal immigration population we have in this country. You have to secure the border first, and illegal immigration is a crime, and it needs to be said that way. That's why it starts with the word illegal. Secure the border.
We spend $90 billion a year on welfare in this country for illegals. We spend $12 billion a year in this country on educating illegals. Since 1070 passed, 3 schools in Tempe have closed and 3 schools in Mesa have closed because the population enrollment's down that much. We allow 1 million people to come into this country every year legally. We allow another 3.5 million people to come into this country with work or education visas. There are some situations where some of the higher tech companies do need some help in attracting people and allowing people to come here, but we need to educate our people to take those jobs, not outsource them. The borders have to be secure. We cannot continue to reward people that do the wrong things and punish the people that do the right things. You're here illegal, and we're going to reward you, and all of you people who are doing the right things are going to pay for it. That's wrong. Obama did this for one reason. It's a diversion. Gay marriage was the first diversion. This is the second diversion. It's getting away from the economy. And if we don't get the economy straightened out, this ship's going to sink. So it's very important we have people with solutions.
All right, I think this one's an appropriate one for where we're starting. We'll go over to Candidate Sepulveda. What do you think about our national defense system, and what improvements, if any, would you propose?
Thank you for asking that. Well, we lost about $500 billion with the last defense cuts. There's another threat of another $500 billion with sequestration. So what it tells me, during the time of war, we lost $500 billion. We didn't collapse. It's fact. Like any other government agency, there's too much waste in DOD. But aside from that, let's assume that we're going to fix all that. I don't think we can afford another $500 billion if sequestration happens with the defense budget. We're still at war. But again, looking at the right programs, the right equipment, and really not fighting a threat that happened 20 or 30 years ago, but really doing the best we can, looking forward to understand what the troop mix needs to be, what the equipment needs to be, and buy the right stuff. And by the way, when defense contractors get out of control, and a plane is 2 or 3 times, or a boat, or a submarine, over budget, it doesn't work. Get rid of it. Thank you.
It's a very complex question to answer in 1 minute. I worked at a headquarters for the U.S. Air Force in Europe in 3 different operational capacities and led 3 different divisions and watched the change of history from the Cold War ending, the Berlin Wall coming down. If someone says to you, we need to bring all the troops home, that person is not privy to the critical intelligence decisions that are made at the high level that whoever the commander-in-chief has to decide from. So I want to just caution you. I agree with my colleague here to the right that we need to have a right sizing and a right fitting to what our needs are going forward in terms of light and modern forces, but we cannot leave the personnel out of the decision-making process. Our troops are stretched far too much.
I think our founders had it right. They said be neutral, provide for a very strong defense. I do understand that we need presence around the world. We've got 58,000 troops in Germany. We've got 23,000 in Korea. Here's what I do say. If those countries feel so strongly that we need a presence there, they need to pay for it, not the taxpayers. It's time that we start charging other countries for us providing their defense. The taxpayers cannot afford it. It's not sustainable. It's not what we want to do that matters. It's what's sustainable. We have to make sure we do what's sustainable and viable for our economy.
You know, I'm proud of our national defense. Every day I'm honored to be part of it as a commissioned line officer. There is plenty of room to cut in this system without affecting our ability to keep ourselves safe in this country. You know, it got brought up a little bit earlier. We have a use it or lose it mentality in this federal government where if you do not spend the money in the bank account, you don't get it back. If you stop that practice alone throughout DOD, you would save hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, we have every September airplanes taking off to burn fuel for 10 hours at times in the skies over Phoenix so they can land, refill, and deplete the fuel farm before midnight so that on October 1st the same amount hits or more as the previous year. That practice has to stop.
As someone who spent over a decade serving in the clandestine service abroad, I actually am privy to the types of strategic threats we face abroad. And I can tell you that the troop alignments that we have currently are anachronistic, and we need a complete realignment, and the Department of Defense is bloated and can stand to take huge, a substantial cut and a realignment that will actually make us safer because it will be more efficient, it'll be leaner and meaner, and it'll be able to address these new types of asymmetrical threats that we have, rather than what we have, for example, in Afghanistan with these huge military footprints when what you really need are good special forces and intelligence elements there.
The number one thing we should do is protect our troops and make sure that we have the funding to do that. But now, having said that, having worked in the federal government and having gone through the budgetary process, everything should be on the table. We should be able to examine what we're paying for and to make sure that we can make the appropriate cuts where we can. My first job out of college, I worked on the B-1B bomber as a financial analyst, and I can tell you, we rounded up to the millions. People, there was a lot of waste, there was a lot of money, and we have to be good stewards of what we're given. When I was mayor of Paradise Valley, people told me we have to raise taxes to take care of our shortfall. I said no. We cut our spending by 30%. We cut our staff by 29%. And we are much better off for it today because we examine every aspect of our budget, and that has to be done at the Department of Defense also.
Thank you. That wasn't so bad, was it? I'm going to give them all a big hand for... And before we let you go, why don't we give you each 1 minute to give some closing remarks. We'll start with you.
Thank you so much. This is a wonderful evening, and I'll tell you, Just to keep it short, these people are probably really tired of hearing this same letter, but I've been endorsed by quite a few people. Hugh Holman, Mayor Tempe is my campaign chair, Jerry Colangelo, but this is one endorsement that I'm really proud of. I'll read very quickly. It says, "Dear Vernon, I hope this helps. Keeps my assistant in the loop. Good luck, and I'm very proud of you." It says, "Vernon is a good man who served honorably in my administration. Vernon is a leader who demonstrates conservative values, love of country, and commitment to excellence in all that he has done. His life story is the American dream. The newly created 9th District is a good fit for Vernon. The people of Arizona would be lucky to have Vernon as their representative. I have every confidence that he will serve them as well as he did in my administration. I encourage you to vote for Vernon Parker. All the best, George H.W. Bush."
I guess I'd just like to add to my opening statement just by saying that I'm centering my campaign on a forceful defense of the morality of the free enterprise system, and I think that that's the big question that we're facing this election year. All these structural issues are important, yes, but we're at a crossroads where we have a president who wants to take us down the path toward a European-style social democracy, and we need to recapture our country and get right back on track toward a free enterprise system. And I just want to say very quickly that, because I didn't say anything about myself, I'm a wife and mother of 4 children. My husband is currently serving a year-long deployment in Afghanistan. And, we as a family feel very strongly about leaving this country in a better place than we received it for our children. So that's why I'm doing this. And I ask you to look at my website, leahforcongress.com. Thank you.
Thank you to the new LD26 for hosting us tonight. It's great. And post-redistricting, it's outstanding to see a group together, this cohesive, active. Here we are, 45 days basically out from our primary. This is a big race. I'm honored to say that I have a lot of great support too. Business leaders, Doug and Ira Fulton, Knight Trucking, Randy Knight and his entire family, people like that, job traders, in and out of this district, around Phoenix, who are very concerned with the direction our country's headed and the direction our economy is headed. I have a lot of great volunteers. They're in the crowd tonight. They're wearing our shirts. We've knocked on over 12,000 doors. We've made over 5,000 phone calls. If you want to get involved, please do. I'd be honored to have your support. Thank you.
I think this is the most critical election in my lifetime, in our lifetime. And I'm going to tell you something. I not only care about America, I care about Arizona, everybody in this room, your family, your children, your neighbors. And if we don't get it right, this might be our last chance. Our economy is really in trouble right now. The spending is out of control. This is a time that's crying for someone to go back to Washington, D.C. that has experience in the business world, economics, and healthcare. Those things, if we don't get straightened out, nothing else is going to matter because the ship will sink. We have to have people back there with solutions. I'd say get on my website. We didn't get to talk a lot tonight about the depths of our solutions. If you go on my website, JeffThompsonForCongress.com, there's a lot of drill down on there. Thank you for coming.
I'm a precinct committee woman here. This is my home. I'm a small business owner. We have a great campaign organization. Martin Mastro is my campaign manager. We similarly have knocked on thousands of doors. I, over the past 2 years, 10,000 doors riding my bicycle. We have an excellent organization that I want you to help us make history with. WendyRogers.org, WendyRogers.org. Come on over, get involved. I've had over 400 people donate to my campaign. We have a great organization, and I want you to be a part of it. Thank you.
Yes, this is a very important election. Experience matters. This is no time for on-the-job training. We could say this election is about the economy, but it's about people. All of us here this evening, our friends, our families, our neighbors. How we choose to come together, move forward, get beyond this crisis as Americans. Whether or not we really believe that government is too involved in our everyday lives. For all Arizonans, we've got a culture of being very self-reliant, very independent. I feel proud that my family's roots go back to this community in almost 150 years. I feel very fortunate that my wife and I raised our family in Arizona. I feel blessed that after 6 different tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, combat tours, both my son and I made it back home safely. I know how precious our liberty and our freedom is. I know it's worth fighting for. I know how to lead. I've got the experience. I'm ready to serve Congress now. I appreciate your attention. I thank you for your time and I ask for your support.
Was that great or what? Had a fine moderator and 6 wonderful candidates who answered a lot of questions. 52 questions were asked tonight. Why don't you stand and let's give them a good round of applause again. Thank you. We are grateful to live in a country where we have the ability to vote and choose our leaders. And we're grateful that we have some fine candidates running right now. We're about at the end of our meeting. Senator Lewis, did you have anything that you wanted to take a couple minutes on tonight? Okay. We normally hear from our legislators at this time, but we did focus quite a bit on our congressional race, which we're grateful for. I'd like to thank the ordinance for providing the sound system tonight, and Barbara Maddow and Tommy as our timekeepers, and we even had Steve Ray as our sign picker-upper for a while. So, there you go, he's fulfilled his duties. Okay, without anything else, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you very much for your time.